has started recording. Fine. So when you open IE browser and go to these options and internet options, and if you go to security tab, so you see like these 4 tabs are here. You're able to see my screen, right? Hello, Shivali. Hi, Shivali. Hello. Hello. Hi, Shivali. Have you disconnected? Hi. Hello, Shivali. Hi, Shivali.
Hello? Yeah.
Okay, so I was not able to hear you, so I thought of like you are on not on audio or what?
Now you can hear me?
Yeah, I could.
Yeah, actually, that's what the system got a little bit freezed, so that's what.
Okay, so I was explaining like last time we were looking into like how to execute our cases on different browser. So Chrome we covered. So we were working on IE browser, like how to we execute on IE browser. So we had some issues there while executing our cases here. So there are few specific challenges we have while executing our cases on IE browser. So first most is the path to the driver executable must be set by the webdriver.ie.driver. That is must. And the second thing is protected mode settings are not same for all zones. That means what does that mean is we'll go into this IE browser. If you open the IE browser, you would see that. And then if you go to internet options, and then if you go to security tab, in security tab, you would have 4 zones here. So these are the 4 zones. So these are the main important zones we have. So you would see like this is an option enable protected mode required starting Internet Explorer. So this must be checked. This must be checked when you are executing your cases on IE browser. And then you should see like if you are seeing in all the 4 zones, this particular enable protected mode is checked, right? So this must be there. So when we were executing our cases on IE browser, this particular one was not checked. So that is why it was failing. And now it should pass. So we would execute our cases, the previous scripts that we had, and we'll see how it works. launch I. We already wrote this script, so we'll just run that. Now it's executing, it's launching the browser. It just clicked and it's entering the next password. What our case was, right? So now we are able to execute our case on IE browser. So you would have understood like the process is same. Like we have to register our driver with the system.set property, and we have to give the path of the IE driver executable that we downloaded, and we have to capture it somewhere on some folder. And then in the similar fashion, we have to create an web driver object of Internet Explorer. So we created an object of Internet Explorer driver and we stored it into web driver. Fine. And then in the similar manner, we could execute the complete scripts that we have. So this is how we do execute our cases on 3 different browsers. So while executing your cases on IE browser, you have to assure like the zoom level of IE browser is not set, is set to 100%. Okay, it should not be. Yeah, it should be like zoom level of IE browser is not set to 100%. So these are the challenges you would have. So what can happen is like your if you open your IE browser and if you see the zoom here, it's 100%, right? So sometimes what would happen is it would be 125. It would be some other. Then in that case, your cases would not execute on your IE browser. So you have to check before executing your cases on IE browser, like your zoom level of IE browser is set to 100%. Then only you would be able to execute your cases. Send keys type character very slow when running scripts on IE browser. So sometimes what would happen is when you would be executing your cases on IE browser while typing text box, when WebDriver would be typing in this text box, the speed of typing would be very slow, like this, like this. Then in that case, what you have to do is, as I told you, like we have to use the 32-bit of iDriver server.exe. 64-bit would have this issue, 64-bit version of iDriver server.exe. So we should always use the 32-bit version of iDriver server. So these are the challenges we have while executing our cases on IE browser. So now you are comfortable, like you can execute your cases on all the 3 browsers. So we'll move on and we'll see like what are XPaths and how do we find the XPath, how do we create the XPath, and how do we execute our cases, and what kind of different XPaths we have in Selenium. Fine. So XPath, if you know, like what is XPath is, XPath is a way to uniquely identify the elements that we have on our web page. Fine. So it's a kind of like it will give you an unique locator for a particular element. So with the help of that particular element, you can find that element with the help of find by XPath. So you would need a unique locator for that particular element. So how do we find those, and how do we create those XPaths so that our elements gets identified uh, uniquely, right? So there are two type of XPath basically we have. One would be absolute XPath and another would be relative XPath. So what are the absolute XPath and relative XPaths are? Basically, we do not recommend to use absolute XPath. Why? Because I would explain you. Let's say I just open the same application that you were practicing on. Okay. So if you open the Firebug, for that we'll just press F12. Fine. So this is what you would get once you open the Firebug. So what is Firebug and Firepath? There are two plugins in Firefox browser. I believe I explained you previously as well, and we have to install these two in the Firefox browser um, to find the locators of the elements. Fine. So once you download the Firepath plugin, you would have this Firepath here. Option would be coming, and this is one of the options. When you install Firebug, you would have this options coming in your Firefox browser. So once you click on this particular icon or you press F12, you would be seeing this thing. Fine. So now to find the elements XPath or the locator, what we'll do is we'll click on this particular icon. We click on that and we'll move on our mouse to that particular element that we wanted to find. If you wanted to find the locators for this search product, or if this item, or if this account, or if this particular drop down, or if this particular input box, then we'll just click on that particular one. So what would happen, it will display that particular element, so that particular element will come. Now if you read this particular element is, you would see like this is an input box. In fact if you click on this particular element, it will show you like what element is there on web page. If you click on some other, then it will show you that as well. Fine. So within input box, if you see, what it is saying is ID log, class text, type text, tab index, size, values, and name. So now how do we create the absolute XPath and relative XPath? So what is absolute XPath is, it will start from the HTML tag, the first most tag that we have in our page. So what happens is, if you see the uh, code of this particular page, uh, this would start from HTML. Every HTML page would start from HTML tag only, right? So if you wanted to write the absolute path of this particular element, what you'll have to do is, you'll have to write like HTML /HTML, and then whatever the next element comes in, body, and then we're saying tag one. If something else is coming like div, and inside that div there is another div, inside that there is another div, inside that if you see there is input box. So in absolute XPath is, it's kind of step by step to cover all the elements that we have in our HTML page. So what happens is, let's say sometimes the UI of this page is changed and someone introduced some other thing, some other element before this element. Before this element, if I do insert some other input box, then what would happen is my case would fail automatically, right? Because I've inserted something else, and in my absolute path, I have not covered that particular path. That is why it will fail. While in relative path, what we give is, we do just uh, tell that this is the input box I need, and that having this particular ID or this particular name. So this is the absolute path. So what would happen is, our function find element by XPath would just search for an input box that having a particular ID. While in case of absolute path, we have to search step by to till till the element that we wanted to identify. So we would recommend to use the relative XPath, not a absolute XPath. Fine. So this is the difference between XPath. I mean absolute XPath and relative XPath. Fine. So now if you click on this particular element, what you see here in XPath, if you see here, this is what you are getting. We take a notepad and we write there. If you click on this particular element for this username, this is what you are getting in your fire path. Fine. So it's saying like if you identify your element with this particular locator, you would be able to find that. Fine. So now if I do eval, this is an option to evaluate that if your XPath or the locator that you are trying to use is correct or not. If you clicking on this eval, it's highlighting that particular username, right? When I'm clicking on this, it's highlighting that, right? That means it's your correct, and it's saying you one matching node. One matching node means there is a node that is matching with this particular XPath. Fine. What if I change it to log1? Then if I do eval, so what is happening? It's saying me no matching nodes. That means this is incorrect XPath. So if I remove that and if I do eval again, it will show me, okay, there is one matching node with this particular XPath. Fine. So this is what we can utilize in our script. Then how should we do that? We'll see that. So few of the things we'll copy just to check. It's giving us error, so we will be creating an object of driver. Fine. So now it is fine, right? It's telling web driver name I am giving incorrectly. Fine. All right. Thread.sleep. It will ask us to throw. Fine. So this is how. So one of the XPath we used previously. So let's see like how it is behaving in that fire path. So I'll just copy this particular XPath and I'll just eval this. So what it is saying, it's saying and highlighting something. If you see on the page, it's highlighting this particular thing. So, and it's saying one matching node. That means this particular item is being identified with this eval. If I do change it to something else, let's say input, what it will do is it will say nothing, no matches, no matching node. There's nothing on the application with this particular XPath. Fine. So this is how we do identify our XPath. So for this particular one ID, we identified it with ID, but now I wanted to identify it with XPath. So how would I do that? So first of all, I'll just click on this particular icon, and this is the username element that I wanted to identify. When I clicked on, it automatically give me this particular Xpath. So I'll just copy this and I'll say m underscore driver dot find element by dot xpath, and then I'll provide the xpath that I copied. Fine. And the rest of the things I would keep same. Fine. So this is how it is going. But if you see this dot, we would basically remove this while using the xpath from the file path. So we would remove that. So basically this would be our xpath for this particular username. But if you see this asterisk, then what does it mean by asterisk? So the meaning of asterisk is like it's saying find any element, on the page that having id as log, But what if there is an different tag? Different tag means, let's say there is a label that having id log, then in that case it might fail, right? Because we are saying like find an element that having an id as log. So input is the element that having an id as a log, so it will find that. But what if there is a label with the id log? Usually it would not happen, but what if it is there? Then in that case it might fail. So what we can do is, if if I do write is like input, then what's wrong in that? There's nothing wrong, right? What we are saying here, like find an input element that having id at the rate id equal to log. So basically we are saying like you have to find an input element that having an id log. So this is how it will find the input. So this is the xpath of the username. So now if we want to find the xpath of this particular password thing, so if you see like this is what we are getting. So if you do eval, it's highlighting that particular password field. So I'll just copy that, and if I do write again find element by dot xpath, if I copy that, and the rest of the things I'll keep same. Fine. So in the similar fashion, we'll remove this dot and we keep input because this is an input tag, right? Fine. So this is how the xpath of the password would be. Fine. Now the button, submit button we have. So we'll just click on this icon and go to the login button. So what we find is this is the xpath of that. Able to click on eval, it should identify that. It's not showing that this is particular eval, but it is showing like one matching node. That means this is the only thing. Fine. So we'll copy this and m driver dot find element by dot xpath, and we'll keep the rest of the thing same. Fine. So in similarly, we'll remove dot from here and let's see what is the tag name. It's input, right? It's highlighting that, right? So we'll keep it input. So now what if I do execute this particular case? What would happen? It should execute that. It's failed. What it is saying, the driver path. Ach, Firefox. Okay, that Gecko driver we have to set here. We set it right for Chrome. Why did we wrote that Chrome? For Chrome we did not do that. for Firefox. So we have the Gecko driver, and this is the property of the Gecko driver for Firefox. So we'll set that. Fine. Now we would execute it. So it's clicked on that and entered the username and password and clicked on the login button. Previously we were using ID and name, but now we are using the XPath and it's still working. So this is how we do find the XPath in any web page. In any web page, if you wanted to find the XPath of a particular element, you just have to click on this particular icon and go and select that particular element. And if you see here, you would see this is a XPath of this particular login button, login link basically. So if you wanted to utilize this, then what you have to do is you have to copy this here, and this dot you can remove and you can directly use it. Or if you wanted to modify it a little, then instead of this asterisk, you can put the name of that particular tag. You can put a tag here. So this would be your XPath for this particular element. If you wanted to verify this account, your account, if you wanted to verify, like if when you click on my account, this particular your account text is coming or not, then if you see, this is your XPath. Fine. So this is how, if you go and copy this particular, then you can remove this dot from here and you can directly utilize it for your account verification. And if you wanted to modify it a little, then if you see @ID post 31, what element it is? This is the element post 31 that having an ID, right? Post 31. So this is an article. So you can change the name of this to article. This is the article tag, right? This particular article ID is post 31. So we change it and you can directly utilize this particular XPath now. Fine. So this is how we do find the XPath of different elements. Any questions for Wali as of now?
Yeah, it's too much, I guess, but I'll go through it.
You understood the basic thing, like how we are finding the elements and how can we write the XPath of that particular element. You got an idea of that?
Yes.
Okay, so then if you are thinking like it's too much, it has been too much, then what I'll do is today we can wrap up this early, just because like if I'll go ahead, the things will mess up for you. So
Okay.
I'm going to cover the CSS locator now. How do we find the elements with the help of CSS locator? So basically, if you wanted to practice something, then if you see mdriver dot, I'll just show you like what you can practice on. mdriver dot find elements by dot. So if you see these are the many options you have to find your elements on particular web. You can find your element by the class name. What does it mean by the class name? Class name is, if you go onto your web page, this class you are seeing on this particular element, so this is the class name. If you provide your class name only, entry title, then with the help of that you can find your element. So this is the class name, and then CSS selector that will cover. ID, we have seen how we can identify our elements by ID. Link text, we have seen whatever the text given between in a link. With the help of that text, we can find our element. Name, if the name is given, name we have seen like what's the name of that particular element. Let's say if you do click this particular, and if you see the name of this particular element is name log. So with the help of that log name, you can find your element. And then partial link text. That means you saw this link text. In link text, we are giving the complete text of the link. But instead of that, if you wanted to give some partial text of that particular link, you can find your element with the help of that. Tag name. Tag name means what is the element. Tag name means input isn't tagged, BR isn't tagged, label isn't tagged, P isn't tagged. So if you wanted to find your element with the help of tag name, you can just provide that tag name and find your elements. XPath, we have seen like how do we find our element with the help of XPath. So you can just um, try to find all the XPath in this particular web application and just hit a click on those particular elements. So what you do is, I have written this particular script till here. Fine. So you can just increase this script. You can write some more statement here like m-driver.find element. You find this particular element and click on this. Fine. And then after that, you try to find this particular element and click on this. Try to find this particular element and click on this. Try to find this particular element and click on this. Try to find this particular element and click on this. So to find the elements, you just need to move your mouse here and you will find this. So after copying this particular, you will copy on notepad and you will remove this dot and you can directly utilize this to find your element. So just hit all the elements that we have in our page. Fine. So you'll get an idea like how do we find the XPath and how do we click on those particular elements. Fine. So this is your exercise for today. So please do that so that we come on a page to cover most of the things. Fine.
Yeah, okay, man.
Okay, sir. If you have any questions, you can email me anytime, and I'll reply you in whenever